that shattering, I was just like, okay, I never want to be that shattered by one person again. Like I need to be more secure and stable inside myself, because I was really looking for that security and stability from another person.
Welcome to Normalizing Non-Monogamy, the podcast where we interview incredible people from across the entire spectrum of non-monogamy to hear their fascinating stories. We strive to bring guests on the show who have a healthy approach to non-monogamy. However, it's important to remember that everyone does it a little bit differently, and the views and opinions expressed by our guests do not necessarily reflect our own.
Additionally, we produce this show for entertainment purposes only. Please be aware that we aren't doctors or therapists. Consult a medical professional for anything regarding your health that you might learn about on the show. Enjoy!
Welcome to episode 214. We're Finn and Emma, and today we have an amazing conversation with Misha. Misha is the co-producer of the Bonobo Network, which Finn will talk more about in just a minute. But we have an awesome conversation around her journey exploring ethical non-monogamy. We also touch on attachment styles and defining what a partner and relationship actually is to you.
Yeah, this is a fantastic conversation, and we're thrilled that we were able to connect with Misha and have her on the show. As Emma said, she's one of the co-producers of the Bonobo Network, which is, and I'm pulling this from their website. This isn't necessarily my wording. Bonobo Network is a community rooted in real-world and virtual events where people learn together and from one another about sexuality, pleasure, and relationships. So if you've listened to our show before, you're aware that we love community. We're huge advocates of finding community, building community, and doing everything you can to create community around you. And so we're super excited that Bonobo Network is a resource out there and what they're building. So thank you, Misha. Thank you, William, for building that.
Yes. To find out more information, go to our website, normalizingnonmonogamy.com, and click on the podcast tab. There you'll find show notes where you'll find links to the Bonobo Network's website, as well as links for the work Misha's doing and how to contact her.
Yes, and before we jump into the interview, we have a couple more opportunities for finding community. Again, definitely check out Bonobo Network. We've been to some of their events in the past, and they're amazing.
Yes.
We also have some other opportunities for you. So within our podcast, we have our Patreon community, which is full of amazing, open-minded people who are there to support one another. We do monthly video Q&As. We also have a men's group and a women's group, and we have ongoing MeWe chat groups as well. So if you're interested in that, if that sounds like it might be up your alley, head over to our website, normalizingnonmonogamy.com, and click on the Patreon tab to learn more about that and to find out how to join.
Yes. Additionally, we have virtual meet and greets that we do every month, and these are open to anyone that wants to join. To find out more information, go to our website again, normalizingnonmonogamy.com, and click on the community events tab, and you'll find all of the information there. The next virtual meet and greet is this Friday. That's December 17th, 2021, from 9 to 11 p.m. Eastern. We also will have 2 more virtual meet and greets in January, and those dates will be announced soon.
And then coming up in February, Emma and I are going to be hitting the road on a little bit of a road trip. We're heading south, and then we're heading west. And so our first stop is going to be New Orleans, and we actually have an in-person meet and greet there on February 7th. Information on how to sign up for that and what that's going to look like is available, again, on our website. Click on the Community Events tab, and then click on the in-person events, or just head to your show notes for your podcast player.
Yes. And again, the meet and greets are open to anyone that wants to join. Also, we will be announcing more meet and greets coming up very soon. If you want to be the first to find out about those events, go join our mailing list on our website. We promise not to spam you. It'll just be information about our events. And again, our website, normalizingnonmonogamy.com.
I just wanted to touch on really quick, for the last couple of minutes, we've been talking about nothing but building community. And I think one of the things that we love about this conversation with Misha, and she touches on this towards the end when she talks about sort of the model for Bonobo going forward, is that there's no competition here. The goal is to help all of us build bigger and better communities for non-monogamy, because, while there are a lot of us, and in comparison, or sort of with looking at the perspective of how many people there really are, there's not that many of us. No. And so the more we can support one another and build each other up and provide access to different communities and different resources, the better. And so I thought that was important to throw out there, that we know we just threw maybe 4 different ways to find community and for different events. And I think the more we can do that, the more excited Emma and I are going to be about what we're building here, because this is exactly the type of work we've been trying to do, and to find people who've been doing it themselves for a number of years is, I don't know, it's really exciting to me, and it makes me pretty happy.
Yes. So listen to this episode and then go check out the Bonobo Network, go check out our Patreon community, go check out the meet and greets, find all of the community, find where you fit, and we'd love to see you on any of those places.
And we'd love to hear from you. While you're on our website, click on the Contact Us page.
Good segue.
I know. Well, I figured I need to stop rambling, so maybe if they send us messages, I'll spend more time reading those and responding than talking. So reach out to us, send us an email, send us a voicemail. We'd love to hear from you. Maybe you have your own community. Let us know how you've been building yours and found yours and what's been working. So we'd love to hear from you. You'll hear back from us, and maybe I will stop talking officially.
Let's go talk to Misha.
Let's go talk to Misha.
Well, welcome, Misha, to the show. We're so excited to have you here today, and we're excited to get to know you a little bit more, as well as the work that you do. So thank you for being here.
Thanks for the invite.
We only know a little bit about you, and we'd like you to introduce yourself for the listeners, and I guess as detailed as you'd like to get at the moment.
Yeah, so I'm Misha Bonaventura. I am the co-producer of Bonobo Network with William Winters. We are a sex-positive community based here in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area. And I have been practicing some form of polyamory, non-monogamy since I was in my 20s, but there was a period of monogamy that happened in the middle there, but consistently for the last 15 years, and also co-creating non-monogamous, polyamorous, sex-positive spaces for the last 15 years as well. And yeah, it's been a journey for sure.
Yeah, that's amazing. And we definitely want to circle back to the work at Bonobo Network, because we actually were invited to join Pleasure Fest last fall of 2020, the year that didn't exist. And it was awesome in like the way that you all went about like creating consent and safety and all of those things is amazing. And so we definitely want to come back to that later on in the conversation. But do you mind talking a little bit about how you came into, discovered non-monogamy, and what that sort of beginning of that journey looked like for you back in your 20s?
Yeah. So I started dating somebody in my 20s who our first interaction was basically a threesome. And that turned into a 5-year relationship with the man of that partnership. And then he had this lover, and I wouldn't say we were a triad, but we were definitely like a consistent threesome for those 3 years of our 5-year relationship. And at the time, I didn't know what polyamory was. I didn't know what we were doing. Like, I didn't know it was even a thing. I was just like, yeah, this is what we're doing. And we have this lover, and she's awesome. And, I definitely, there was a moment where I was like, yeah, I think I'm bisexual, and my ideal relationship is to have two partners, like more like a triad, like a consistent triad, where I would have a female partner and a male partner. And so, in my 20s, I was just like, yeah, that would be my ideal, and blah, blah, blah. And then over the 5 years of that relationship, we really explored a lot. He was very into lots of different subcultures and really introduced me to a lot of interesting things. So we would go to BDSM parties, play parties. We would have little mini play parties with our friends. We ended up moving out here to California together, and ended up becoming best friends with someone who was like, let's make a conscious BDSM video. And we ended up doing this wild video that was, I kind of freaked out, was like, no, we cannot release this. I can't become this like video porn star person. But, but you know, it was there. It was in my 20s. And we also were going to Folsom Street Fair and exploring Folsom Street. I was friends with somebody who was working with Midori, who is a well-known dom and teacher, femdom teacher in the Bay Area for many years. She's a little bit of a legend. And so I would, like I'd see Midori around, and I'd just be like, oh my God, so amazing. And so, there were inklings of me wanting to be a sexpert and wanting to explore relationship. I was open to exploring different kinds of relationships, but had no mentorship or no real community. Everyone else I knew was monogamous or, dating basically. And so within those 5 years that I was with this person, we had a lot of exploration. And then by the end, I was like, I think I just want to like settle down and be monogamous, or just like be in what I was thinking was like, I'm doing this, like either I'm going to go on this wild path of just total different lifestyle than anyone else I know, or I'm going to be monogamous and like find a husband and possibly have a kid, or, like that was kind of my mentality at that time. And so I broke up with that partner and decided I was going to find a husband, and went down that path for about a decade and found somebody who I thought was going to become my husband. And, we were on this trajectory. And part of that story was that he was really exploring his own purpose, and he had actually broken his back 3 years before I had met him and had a near-death experience, and basically was redesigning his entire life while we were together, based on this near-death experience, and really finding a new way of working. So he was changing from being a tech guy to being a giant squid expert. That's right.
That's amazing.
He was becoming a giant squid expert. And, something clicked in me that was just like, what am I doing with my life? Like, where am I going with my life? And he really inspired me to really think about what would I want to do with my life if I had a choice. And that led me down a many different paths, but one of the biggest paths has been, I guess when we were together, it was around coaching. I was really looking at coaching and things like that. We broke up, and that breakup was a catalyst for me to really shift and start to explore my own relationship style and my own sexuality, because that the dream of having a monogamous relationship where, the person who I was going to spend the rest of my life with was shattered. And through that shattering, I was just like, okay, I never want to be that shattered by one person again. Like I need to be more secure and stable inside myself, because I was really looking for that security and stability from another person. And from that major event that happened between us, I started really thinking about, what does relationship mean to me? And I started co-producing and co-directing a show called What is Erotic in Santa Cruz. And that was all about helping people. We did a call to artists. Anybody could create a performance of answering the question, what is erotic to them? And we would help them create it in a way that was stage worthy And then it was kind of like a cabaret style. We would piece together all of the acts, which were like 3 to 6 minute acts, and then have a big show during Valentine's Day every year. And from there, I started having a reputation of someone who was, really sex positive and into sexual expression. And that was when I started getting invited to sex parties. And sex parties were kind of the way in which I started exploring all of the ways in which I was thinking, I started deconstructing my monogamous mindset basically inside of sex parties, and using sex parties for my own self-transformation around how I thought about a relationship, how I thought about partnership, who was attracted to me, who I was attracted to, who I was jealous of, who I wasn't jealous of. Like, all of these questions started coming up inside this kind of cauldron of experience that is a sex party. And so, yeah, I started coming up to the Bay Area and exploring relationships. I always wanted a partner, but I never was able to have a very long, my longest relationship inside of polyamory has been about a year. And I think that part of that is really just piecing apart some of my inner world of how I am in relationship, and really getting solid. And just this year, actually, after reading Polysecure multiple times and teaching Polysecure multiple times, I have started really owning that I am solo poly, and that my path has been to really love myself in a way that allows me to be centered and also loving others. And then how can I get close? How close can I be to other people and allow them to be themselves and allow me to be myself? And through being more oriented towards solo poly, that has really opened up a bunch of doors for me in my relating. Whereas in the last few years, it's been pretty me thinking that I am going to find a partner and then I will feel secure enough in order to we'll all have, other lovers or whatever. And it's just that's just not how it works. It's just that's not how my brain works. So, so anyway, that's where I am now.
Yeah. Thank you for that overview, and walk through the last how many years of your life. I'm interested in jumping back a little ways to the beginning in your 20s. And at that time, did you have any framework growing up? You said everyone you knew was monogamous, but did you have any framework that non-monogamy existed, or were you just learning as you went there with your partner?
I really feel like I was learning as I went. I think there was I was informed by some trauma around in my early teenage years around my father. What was my framed as my father cheating on my mother, and them breaking up suddenly, not realizing that my family was not happy. And so I think there is a way in which I want my partners to be happy in their choice of being with me. And I think that is very informed by feeling like my family life was a bit of a lie. As I grew up for 16 years, I found out that they were not happy from the day that they got married, and I was just I never want to have that experience. And so I'd much rather be alone than be in an unhappy marriage, or thinking that we're doing the right thing because that's what society tells us to.
Right. Or even the staying together for the kids, right? It sounds like that was maybe what was somewhat happening, right? Like, well, we're together, we just stick it out for the kids' sake. But like that also then informs trauma when you figure out that you were the reason, then your parents were unhappy for whatever number of days, weeks, months, years, right? Like that's tough.
Yeah, for sure. I didn't want to be put into a situation where I felt like I had to stay with a person who was making, potentially making me miserable, or I was having a story that they were, that we were miserable together. I just didn't want that. It also probably informed me not wanting to have children as well.
Right. And I think too, like, sort of to build on what Emma was asking about, like you said, your first sort of non-monogamous exposure was like your first experience with a partner was a threesome. And I'm just curious, like, that's a like
jump right in.
That's like, hey, I'm here to go on this date. And then all of a sudden we're having a threesome. Like, could you maybe explain like some of the detail around how that happened and like how like you show up game for something like that when you've not had any exposure to that, and it's sort of the jumping off point for all of this?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I would recommend it per se. But like, I mean, one thing I've realized about myself is that I am attracted to intense people, and I like intensity. And I think there's a part of me that has always been a yes for the adventure. Partly why I love my Bonaventura name is like I am a yes for adventure. Who cares about all the feelings that might happen afterwards, or the other part of me that's scared. Like, we're not going to listen to that part. We're just going to like go for the adventure and the experience. And while that has led me in my life to have really amazing experiences, the things that I think I've learned over time is that there are other parts of me that have wanted to be listened to, and that there were parts of me that probably could have used going slower, and probably for the other people too, especially the other woman who we were involved with. Like, I don't think we ended that relationship properly. We didn't take care of her. I think it was a very, now that I hear about how people who are unicorns get treated, and like the critiques that we hear about the secondary critiques, I definitely think we did that to this person, completely not knowing, completely unintentionally, like not taking care of her. In fact, I thought she was way more interested in being way more solo than possibly she actually was, because there wasn't a lot of great communication either between all of us. So, looking back, I can see all of the unhealthy kind of tropes and ways in which that all played out. And while I loved that experience and I cherish it, and I cherish the sweetness that I had with both of those people, I think there was so many ways in which we could have handled all of that relationship better.
Yeah, which is super interesting, right? Because that's sort of the critique that always comes out on unicorn hunting is like, oh, it almost is painted like these people are malicious, trying to like take advantage of somebody. And I think a lot of the time it's, we don't know what we don't know. And you're just sort of figuring out as you go. And like, I struggle to believe that most people are malicious. I think maybe there are some people out there, but I think the vast majority just are trying to be either protect themselves, protect each other, and you just kind of get lost in it, and you don't really know until you, like you said, like you look back in hindsight and you're like, oh, kind of messed that up and probably hurt this other person because of things that you thought maybe about, like you said, she was maybe more interested in the independence than it turns out. So I appreciate you sharing that. That's super valuable. And yeah, and then it sounds like though, like that adventure then played out further, that you were kind of jumped in with that guy, and right, going to different, you said some BDSM stuff and some kind of jumped in, and then you pulled back, right, a little bit. and then Squid Guy happened, which is amazing. I think this is the first time
giant squid
anyone's been like, I attribute my successful career to somebody and giant squid. So I love that.
Yeah, it is quite a unique experience.
I'm sure that would be an entire podcast on its own, just dissecting that. But yeah, I think it's amazing. And go ahead, Emma. I'm just rambling now. So,
well, I'm curious too, kind of what you said a little bit, like what your mindset was, but I want to dig a little bit more. You said you had 5 years of experience with your partner that you had the threesome with, and you experienced a lot of different things. What caused you to kind of pull back and try to find that husband, as you said?
I mean, I think at the time I was thinking either I'm going to stay with this person and this person's going to be my person for, we're going to get married. That was the track that I thought we were going to be on. And we're going to live this kind of eccentric life. Like this person I hadn't even heard of Burning Man at the time. He was already going into Burning Man. They were like, he was really like into subcultures and finding subcultures way ahead of like how I find things or was thinking about things. So he was exposing me to things that I am now like fully immersed in. And which is ironic because if I would have just stayed with him, we would have just been on that trajectory. But I think there was something important for me to find my own pathway. And while he was leading and like really exposing me to some things that I probably would have never been exposed to, there was a way in which I was not centered enough or secure enough in my own being to make clear choices around where I wanted to go. And the direction that I saw him going were he was starting to have friends that seemed like they were doing more drugs than I really wanted to be part of. And I was like, do I really want to live in a warehouse space for the rest of my life? Like, it was just like, am I going to be this like eccentric artist person for the rest of my life? Or am I actually going to go down some kind of career path and like make some money and like have a husband and possibly have a child? Like there were these questions were kind of percolating for me at that time. And it was either what felt like eccentricity, like wild eccentric art life, or a more normal, I don't know,
domesticated,
domestic life that seemed more grounded to me. And that was basically the choice point that I made. And so I was just like, okay, I don't want to marry this person. I don't want to have a child with this person. I'm going to break up with them and like take my own path. And I think it was really important for me in my own development to like really start to own some of these things. And it was really interesting that I did come back to a lot of the things that he initially exposed me to.
Right. And then you kind of talked then about how in the last, it sounded like about a year and a half, you've done a lot of self-discovery in the coming to the solo poly label or identity, I guess. And like, can you talk a little more about that? Because they sound kind of interlaced. Like you went down the like feeling like you needed the security of the long-term partner, and that sounds like it maybe stuck around even through quite a bit of your polyamorous journey up until pretty recently. And like, I guess maybe understanding that shift a little more, because I think that's a pretty powerful one as well.
Yeah, I think my shift really came from a breakup that I had a little over a year ago, right at the beginning of the pandemic was the final breakup. And I think just the stressors of the pandemic on top of a relationship stressor that was already happening just made it completely blow out and not able to kind of stick with being with that relationship for longer. But that relationship really showed me some core attachment trauma that I carry. And thankfully, Jessica Fern wrote Polysecure and released it in the pandemic. If you haven't read that book, I highly recommend everyone read Polysecure. It is one of the best open relationship, non-monogamous books out there, and it's really like poignant right now. I think it's one of the books that is really needed around creating secure attachment inside of non-monogamous relationships. So I ended up reading that, and then I ended up doing 2 book clubs, and then I ended up starting to teach Polysecure 3 times. So I have read this book at least 5 times over the last year. It has been hugely influential in how I see the world now and how I see everything now as an insecure or secure attachment. And as I look through that lens of like, am I feeling secure in this connection, whether it's relating, whether it's my community, whether it's the earth, all of the ways in which she describes how we the nested model of attachment, it has helped me to figure out like, okay, so how do I create more security in myself right now? And how do I invite my partners or the people in my life to support more security? And that's the only question I need to ask is like, okay, how do I invite more security here? And whether it's me doing it myself, which is part of the hearts model that she offers, or it's in connection with other people, both of those are valid ways to create more security. And it's such a simple lens to look through that I've just loved it, for one. The other thing is the being solo poly thing is like, well, I can want partnership all I want. Like it doesn't mean it's there, right? Like I'm just like, I would love to have a long-term partner. And in some ways, like it's part of my mindset where it's like, oh, well, I don't have a romantic nesting person who has been here with me for a long period of time. But, I have my business partner, William Winters, who is my co-producer in Bonobo Network. We have been together as friends. We have had a lovership over time. We are no longer lovers, but we are business partners now. And we are incredibly secure together for the last over a decade. So why do I not count that as part of my partnership and like my secure attachment? Why is it in my head that if I don't have a romantic partner that I am living with, it doesn't count? And so part of my own meditation and reframing of how I do life and how I do relationship is that counts. That counts. It's a long-term, steady relationship. We're making life together. We are doing something big, and that is what we do together. I have other people who have also had I've had long-term relationships with. Why do I not count them as partners in my life? So, really counting that, like as I talk to my new romantic partners, also, Esther Perel teaches, like stability is not very erotic, right? And so, just because you have a nesting partner doesn't mean it's very sexy. And like often they are just platonic, they're platonic housemates as well. And it's like, okay, so why can't I just love my erotic, sexually charged lovers who are more casual, and we have a lot of erotic friction, and I don't need to yearn for them to be more. I want them to stay over there so that we can stay like with our erotic selves and we can have long-term loverships. And then the person who is my housemate, who I don't have sex with, and have a very clean and clear relationship with, and we have tons of fun together, like, why can't that person also be a partner? So, really starting to own and expand what I think of as partnership, and making my relationships count inside my head. I mean, obviously they count, but it's just like my perception of how I view things and the importance of them and the priorities that I have and my security, all of that is just it's like a deconstructing my paradigm, internalized monogamous paradigms, basically.
Which is not something you just do overnight, right? That's a hell of a lot of work. And I think like just something you kind of touched on right at the end was like, why can't you live with somebody and build a life and you are partners, right? That's just as valid, right? But like you said, like a lot of times people who are married and they're supposed to have this super spicy sexual relationship on top of raising kids, on top of jobs and all the other stuff. And they often wind up being in these relationships that probably look similar to what you're doing. There's no sex or limited sex, and they're co-creating a life. And I think what gets hard there is then there's so much pressure to be like, oh, well, we're married. We're supposed to be like banging like 3 times a week. And if we're not upholding like the contract of a marriage, and we're not living up to the standards
or a
and
primary relationship. Yeah.
Right. Whatever label you want to put on it. And so I think it's just sort of throwing out all of the expectations and re-looking at them. And that's huge. Like that's a huge shift. So I'm impressed, and thank you for sharing about like sort of how you got there. Appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah. This is probably an impossible question, but where do you kind of see yourself going in the future?
So my desire right now and what I'm doing right now is cultivating secure relationships in all of my realms. And so one of the biggest realm is, how do I have both a sexual relationship that is like, how is it to stay in the ebb and flow of relating, right? And so I know that my attachment system gets very nervous when I have someone who I'm close to and they start to disconnect or go away for whatever reason. It could be that their job gets really hectic and they don't have enough space for me, or they don't have as much space as they did before. And then that starts to get me nervous because it feels like they're going away. Or what if they meet another person and their attention is drawn over there and now I'm less shiny or less exciting? What happens inside my nervous system? And so my desire is to, like, what I'm cultivating inside myself is to be okay with the ebb and flow of relating. And how is it, like, can I appreciate when the flow is coming toward me, and can I appreciate when there's an ebb, and how do I create that balance inside myself where I am both enjoying the connection and I can be self-resourced enough to like be centered in myself, or look at go somewhere else if the attention isn't there from one person. How do I actually allow my nervous system to be at a baseline of security where I can enjoy the ebbs and flows and the highs and lows, even as there are, someone might be coming or going inside my relationship life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Right. That it's not so destabilizing, right? If that transition. Yeah, that's awesome. And again, thank you for sharing that. And I think that maybe the thought I had on that was, do you feel like at this point, if you were to start to develop what maybe started to feel like a primary, or somebody who stuck around for longer than a year, and it really started to feel like maybe, quote unquote, more, would that be something that you would be like open to? Or do you feel like at this point you would sort of almost shy away from that because of sort of what you've learned about yourself at this point?
Oh no, I totally I still want a nesting partner. I still would love to have somebody who plays that role in my life. And, you know, at this point, there are standards that I have that, like, in order to get to that place, we would have to have agreements. We would have to, like, they would have to be on board with us being secure with each other, and like that is our orientation, and that we are we are both playing the game of creating more security for each other and everyone in the ecosystem of our relating. And you know, I would want someone who wants to go to therapy with me, or maybe even preemptively go to therapy before we even have any, you know, issues come up. I would want somebody who wants to read books with me. I would want somebody who's like as relationship geeky as I am, because, and who also understands trauma, because I do definitely have some trauma in my past that needs a little bit more holding than maybe some other people. Although I don't know that anybody doesn't have any trauma. They just don't necessarily know about it, or as aware of it as others. So, yeah, like I would want to have somebody who wants to geek out with me in that way, and wants, because we're playing on such a high level relationship game of, you know, multiple people, multiple communications, multiple ecosystems being, you know, integrated or hit, or, you know, all of that. I would want that to be, that's probably my main standard of like what would create a long-term relationship for me.
Right. And so it's not so much you're shunning that, it's you have found the security in not having it as much, right? Like you're okay if it doesn't happen, but you're still wide open to it happening, and you would love for that. That's sort of what I picked up on, was like the kind of shift.
Yeah, my biggest thing is I want to stop yearning for something different.
Yep. Yep.
I'm like, I just want to be good with where I'm at, and I want to be okay and good with where the people in my life are, and not having to like grasp for more or yearn for more or be in pain that something else isn't happening. I just want to enjoy what is being offered, and like what feels right between us. And I think that's one of the big things for me, is I want to find right relationship with each person in my life. And whether that is staying at lovership for the rest of our time together, and like we possibly see each other at sex parties, and if it feels right, we get to, you know, we hook up and it's hot and it's great, or and we never proceed into trying to like date or make time for each other or have conversations, or to, you know, like maybe it does make sense that we're want to live together, or want to live close to each other, or want to make bigger commitments to each other. One of the things that's weird about me is like, I'm not looking to buy a house with anyone. I'm not looking to have children with anyone. So like, what are the bigger commitments for me that are here? Like there's not some outside thing that's actually causing the bond to happen that will make us work through some of the harder stuff that might come up. And so it really is about choice with me around like, I mean, unless we buy a house together, maybe that would be the biggest kind of external commitment that I would make with another person. And that would mean that we would need to be willing to work through conflict when it comes up in pretty profound ways. So,
yeah. I mean, I think just the intentionality behind that, right? Like, there's so many people who are just like, "Woo, we're going to buy a house and have a kid and do this and that."
It's the relationship escalator.
Well, yeah, and they're without the thought and the like, hey, maybe let's preemptively get into counseling or therapy, so when there is conflict, we know how to handle it. Like, I don't know. I love the intentionality behind it.
Well, yeah, because like you said, I mean, pretty much everyone has some sort of trauma or some sort of baggage. Like, we're all human. We all live lives. Like, there's things that are important to discover about yourself and learn about yourself through therapy and any type of relationship. And I also really love what you said a little bit ago about the finding security in relationships doesn't have to necessarily be romantic relationships. And that really resonated with me because it's so easy, like for you too, like for all of us to go to that place of it has to be a romantic, like primary type relationship for it to feel secure. And like, that's what my focus is. For it to be valid. Yeah, exactly. To qualify as a secure relationship. And it's like, hang on, no, like there's other types of relationships that you can value and have in your life that also can be secure. And can you get the security that you need from those types of relationships as well? And I think that is like, thank you for sharing that, because I think it is so important for all of us to recognize and remember, and also love the book Polysecure.
Yeah. I mean, Jessica Fern's nested model of attachment is so brilliant, and ability, and then to start to think about even outside of relationships, how secure am I with my home? How secure am I with my money? How secure am I with my neighborhood? All of these things are ways in which we are securely attached or insecurely attached to these relationships. And to start to think and filter through thinking in that way is just there's so many ways in which you can then make changes in order to feel more secure and be a more secure relationship with these different types of things. Is just like so many good things to think about.
I know, right?
Right. And so I think, like, we talked a little bit beforehand about, like, one of the things we love to talk about are sexual health and safety, consent, and bloopers, and all of these different things. But I think maybe what would make sense is to, before we get into that, talk a little bit about the Bonobo Network, the evolution of that, like when that sort of came into your picture, and like how this developed. Because I know a lot of the things I just mentioned, other than bloopers, are really pillars of what Bonobo kind of weaves in, the consent, the sexual health and safety, and openness. And so I would love to maybe come at it from that approach.
Inclusivity.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah. So Bonobo Network came into being 11 years ago, and it was created by William Winters, who is my friend and colleague now. And we knew each other back then when he started just throwing parties at his house for his birthday party. And he started growing his friendship group and his parties. I was one of the people who were his kind of trusted network of advisors. We had met at another sex party community and had been on council together, where we really formed our working relationship and our trusted bond in that community. And then as he started to grow Bonobo, it became clear, and the Me Too movement happened, it became clear that it was necessary for a woman's voice to be expressed in as a leadership in this in his community. And so that's when he asked me to join. So that was I think that's 4 years ago. Next week it will be my official anniversary. And since then, we have just been a power team of growing Bonobo Network into a community of people that are really grounded in our values. And the 6 main principles of Bonobo is high possibility, low expectation. Lots of things can happen at Bonobo parties or within Bonobo Network, but they may not happen to you. So that's like the short version of high possibility, low expectation. The next one is trust and trustworthiness. So entering into a sexual space, you need to have a lot of trust. And if you're entering into our space, then you must be trustworthy in some way, because someone has invited you in. And also being your most trustworthy will help cultivate trust. Consent is obviously a main principle for us, and very important. And then support. So high challenge, high support is the next one, which is all around like, yeah, sex parties are super fun, but also they can be incredibly challenging and very confronting and can bring up all of your high school shit for sure. And so we offer peer-to-peer support counseling at our parties and in our community, in the virtual community space as well. We offer every weekday, we have an angel room that starts at 12 o'clock and runs for an hour. And so people can come if they're having a hard time, they can just come and get a listening ear by peers to talk about what's going on for them. And then the next one is participation. So we love everyone participates. We are not just the creators of the space or the hosts. Like, we actually expect everyone to be engaged and participate and make offerings and be hosts themselves. And then inclusion is the last one of like, we're very dedicated to creating an inclusive space for as many people as want to join us. So
Yeah,
that's our my little spiel about Bonobo Network.
Yeah, no, I love it. And I think, I mean, maybe an interesting way to approach like what this really like looks like in practice would be like, what was your first sex party experience pre-Bonobo? Like the first time you ever went to a sex party versus like, if somebody's like, I want my first sex party to be a Bonobo sex party. What is the contrast between what you can create or what you've created versus like either your first experience or like maybe paint with a broad stereotypical brush of like what you know other experiences to be like, traditionally.
Yeah. I mean, I think in my 20s when I was going to public sexy spaces or bigger BDSM parties, there was a range of experiences. The practices around letting women in and making men pay double, and all of these kind of practices that seem like they would balance the gender issues, but actually create more issues. I was definitely groped non-consensually in sexual spaces like that. And also, I think some of the ways in which we are trying to solve for problems around like creepiness, or you hear about, you go with your partner and are having sex, and then all of a sudden you look up and there's like 5 people jerking off around you, like, scary, like not consensual. Watching is also participating, and then also like touching yourself at people. It's just like, oh geez, this is not good, right? And like, how do you create safety inside of these spaces? How do you actually create sexual interaction, social sexual space that feels good to people, that actually feels safe, trustworthy, consensual? Like, how do you actually create a whole culture around that so that the creepy vibe, that women don't get scared off, or women and non-binary people don't get scared off? Like, how do you make it so that they're not just hungry people trying to get, and that we're actually having a collaborative, interactive, invitation-based experience where everyone feels excited to be participating, or at least like everyone is there treating each other like humans, not like sex objects. And so that's really like what why I come back over and over again, and why I am creating these spaces, is because I want humans, but especially women and non-binary people, to feel safe in sexual space, because it's ridiculous to think that women are not sexual beings or don't want to like be super sexually expressed, because I can tell you right now, when women feel safe and are at their full sexual expression, everyone else has a really fun time. and so, like, how do we actually create a culture where that is cultivated instead of what we have now in broader culture, which is mostly fearful. Both sides are fearful. All sides are fearful. There's, sexual violence is prevalent. People feel microaggressed or taken from. Other, men often say that they feel blamed or like they can't do anything now. Like, how do we like unravel all of these dynamics so that we're creating a culture where sexual expression feels safe, fun, consensual, exciting, that the tension is there, that people are like it's creativity at its core. So that's why I keep coming back over and over again, even when it's hard, even when I'm not having a good time, even when, things happen that are difficult or painful. This is I've definitely found my own purpose, my own giant squid.
Right, exactly. The giant squid is a metaphor at this point for your beacon in life.
Yeah,
the Kraken, my Kraken
calling
is social sexual spaces.
And so, like, I mean, all of that is absolutely amazing. And I think, you threw out one thing that was like the antithesis, right? Like, oh, we're going to charge men double and we're going to let women in for free. And that's going to make it better, right? And turns out that actually often makes it worse. Obviously, you don't need to give away all of the secrets, but are there like one or two things that you have found to be like
things that work,
things that do work, things that do help create this, that like somebody could maybe make as like, hey, I'm throwing a house party with 10 or 15 couples. Like, what are a couple of things I can do to get closer to a bonobo model? Maybe easily. And I know it's never an easy thing, but like some of like the biggest game changers maybe.
Yeah. So just so you know, everything that we do is open source, and anybody is able to go to our website and look and see we have a consent policy that's open source. If anyone wants to use our consent policy, we just ask for attribution. So we're really, our focus is to spread sex positive community, sex positivity in general, as far and wide as possible. There's no competition here because it is just getting started. This is just getting started in life. And we are team players with everyone. Very polyamorous in our business model as well as our relationship style.
I love that the abundance mindset, right? That like you don't want to have the monopoly on, hey, we're the only safe sex party in all of North America because we know the secret. Like that it doesn't help anybody.
What good does that do?
Right, exactly.
Yeah, there is a huge market for like amazing sexual spaces for sure, and we are just the, like, I don't want to say tip of the iceberg because there's many people doing this work, but there are like lots of room for more innovation and more doing things better. So we encourage everyone to like start their own spaces. And that's going to be one of the things that we're going to start to offer is I don't really want to like create more bonobo parties in all different parts of the world. I just want to teach people how to create their own communities that work for them and show them what we've learned, and let them create their own spaces. So that's part of our model of kind of teaching people to fish, to keep on with the squid metaphor. So some of the tips that I would say is, if you're just doing your house party, like, at some level, the game that we're playing is even more than where people would be starting off on. So it can be a little hard for me to orient. Like, payment plans and things like that for people. It's just like, that's like so beyond what people actually need to know about. But yeah, understanding who your guest list is and like how to even make invitations to your friends, right? Like people thinking about like, oh, I'm just going to invite my friends over and then it's going to become a sex party. Like, actually, that's such a huge jump from where you probably need to start, which is more like a cuddle space, or like finding out if you and your friends want to actually be touching each other could probably be a good step. Like, hey, maybe we start to create a culture where we are able to cuddle with each other, and it doesn't mean anything except that we're like touching each other and feeling good and like creating the oxytocin that is fun and sweet. And like that is like a baby step. Going dancing is another amazing way to have like both sexual tension, because sexy dances are so fun, but also safe container of the dance. You're just there for 3 minutes and then you're parting ways, things like that. So those are all Cuddle Party by Marsha Brzezinski and Reed Mihalko. Amazing resource to start cuddle spaces or creating consensual cuddle spaces with your friends. To jump to like sexy parties, I think finding people that are interested in that can be, especially if you're not in like a major urban area, can be a little difficult. So maybe going to sex store, like toy stores, sex toy stores that have classes. So starting to go to classes, starting to go to burlesque shows or other sexy spaces where you can start to meet people that are interested in sex, sexuality, relationships, things like that. So yeah, like the jump between we're friends or like we're interested in this to like we're going to have a sex party, it can be a little bit tricky, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think the other things might be if you are starting to like decide to want to have a sex party, figuring out who would be good matches for that. So you want, like, especially if it's a smaller crowd, like you don't want to bring someone who's just going to be like, going to feel very out. So you want to make sure that it's a cohesive group of people, and then build from there. And then they can bring their friends or they can bring people and make sure that people feel included. So having icebreakers, having a opening circle is a really great way to have everyone be on the same page. I love our closing circles. We have at the end of our parties, we have a closing circle where people can just name their experience, whether it was hard or whether it was ecstatic, and just have all that in the pot and learning and understanding, things like that. Also, as an event producer, dealing with consent violations is probably the worst part of your job, and that you will quickly find out that like it's not as fun as it. The event producer part can be very challenging in that regard.
Yeah. You go to a sex party to work instead of enjoy the sex, right? It's a job at the end of the day, right? So I can understand that. And thank you for sharing all of that. It's hugely, hugely appreciated.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. And if people want to find out more about the Bonobo Network, is your website the best place to find you?
Yeah, bonobonetwork.com is our brand spanking new website, and you can find all about it, everything about us. You can apply. There's an application to get into Bonobo Network. We have an online community, so it doesn't matter if you're in the Bay Area or not. You can still join our online community and potentially come to a retreat or fly out to a party if you want to actually experience our events. But the virtual community is very robust and active and fun, and it's easy to meet people through the virtual spaces.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Amazing.
And they just have to do the application on our website to get into that.
Yeah. There's an application, there's a membership fee and an orientation, and they get in. And And we also do coaching, one-on-one coaching or couples coaching, things like that. Oh, and I also am a mediator and consent and accountability coach. So if anyone's having a hard time, if they've gotten accused of a consent violation, things like that, I'm very happy to help with that kind of
Awesome.
those kind of issues.
Thank you. And links to all of that will be in the show notes as well.
So I think like maybe building on that and maybe just kind of a couple of final things. Like one, wanted to give you the opportunity to talk about anything that we didn't ask about that was on your mind that you wanted to share. And also having been to probably at least a few sex parties in your day, we'd love to hear maybe a funny story or two that comes to mind, either for yourself or maybe you witnessed it happen.
You know, I had this great story the other day. I always go blank when people ask, and now I need to start writing them down so that I can like remember the funny stories, because I definitely have all kinds of funny stories. I just go blank when people ask me. One of the most surprising things that ever happened was, do you know what a magic wand is? It's like the long magic wands that they have.
We're familiar.
So the Hitachi magic wand, put a plug in for Hitachi. So what I didn't realize is that if I had some sadistic friends, and if you put the Hitachi on the edge of a person's nose, they will sneeze uncontrollably. And as yeah. And as part of a scene, I had two partners who were ganging up on me, basically, and decided that would be a really fun thing to make Misha sneeze over and over and over again for a while. So that was kind of a thing that you don't normally see at a sexy party, but, you know, it starts to get really creative.
Right. I was like, you want to bet that there's a lot more people now going to try that.
Including your hosts.
Yeah. Get your sadist, put your sadist hat on and be like, okay, I'm really gonna torture you and make you sneeze really ridiculously. I mean, I also just love, like, I have loved more and more using sex and sexuality as a transformational tool. And so I've designed scenes for myself to like support myself in my own transformation. And last birthday, I created a birthday party with all of my friends. So we were all like young Misha with young friends. And then I transformed myself into my own daddy adult. And now I have this whole daddy persona and playing with my own daddy, my own, sexual dominant daddy persona. And that has also been really fun. So part of what's been amazing about being like seeing other people having sex, like real people having sex at sex parties. One, it's just amazing to see how beautiful people's bodies are, and like really breaking apart the paradigm that like you have to be a certain body type or a certain look to be beautiful. And to like really see real people having real sex and in their, imperfect body, beautiful bodies is just amazing. The other thing is really playing with gender, like really expanding the idea of like, what is gender? What gender am I? What body parts do I have? Strapping on a cock and embodying my masculine, things like that, like really shifting out of this idea that we are playing certain roles and are in certain bodies and you can only be that, I think is one of the most amazing things about the sexual spaces that I occupy. Is like, I love seeing people of all genders in our spaces playing with their gender. I love seeing men for the first time putting on nail polish and dresses and stockings and playing with their gender for like, and we've had a lot of people say for the first, like, I've gotten to play in this realm for the first time and really be self-expressed. And I feel so free. It's just like, I love that is available in our social sexual spaces. So, it's not for everybody, but I love that it's just available, right? Like if you want it, you can be that expressed in our spaces. And I really, that really warms my heart.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing too, because it is so important that, like you said, not for everybody, but that doesn't matter because it may be for somebody or maybe for lots of people, and that it's a safe space for people to express themselves in whatever way feels right to them, is important and powerful. And thank you for creating that space and co-creating that space.
Yeah.
Yeah. And is there anything else that we haven't talked about that you wanted to get out into the world before we let you get on with your afternoon today?
I don't think so. I feel like we covered a lot of ground.
Yeah,
we did.
We have a way of doing that in an hour. I don't know how it happens, but a huge amount of gratitude and thanks for coming on, for creating all the spaces you've created, for just open sourcing the wealth of knowledge you have, and just thank you for that. Yeah.
Yes, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
You're welcome. Thank you. Yes. Thanks for inviting me on.
And we're back. A huge thank you to Misha for coming on the show, sharing your story, and for, of course, the amazing work that you do with the Bonobo Network.
Yeah, I talked ad nauseum in the intro about how important it was. So thank you, Misha. And I just wanted to give a quick update on one thing that Misha talked about that I promised Emma and I were going to try, and we haven't tried it yet.
The Hitachi trick.
The Hitachi trick.
Yeah.
We have not gotten to that. To be honest, I don't know that we've had an opportunity.
Yeah.
We'll get there.
We'll get there.
Maybe next week. We'll have an update for you next week on this. So I'm excited for that one. I don't know who's going to be the sneezer.
I don't know. We'll have to see.
Maybe we'll both take a turn.
Anyway.
Yes, anyway. Thank you again, Misha, and we're excited for what you're building. Thank you for building it.
Yes, and go check out thebonomonetwork.com. Also, go check out our website, normalizingnonmonogamy.com. There you will find podcast show notes. You will find information about our upcoming virtual meet and greets. The next one is this Friday, December 17th, and we'll have more in January as well. You'll also find information about our upcoming in-person events starting in New Orleans on February 7th, and you'll find all the information about our incredible Patreon community.
There's a lot of information on that website.
Yes.
The last thing you'll find over there really quick is links to get tested for STIs and save yourself $10. Emma and I use a service, stdcheck.com. We've been using it for years. We love it. So if you are finding your community, and that community means you get to meet people in person and maybe have some intimate time together.
Have some fun.
We highly recommend getting tested and knowing your status so you can talk confidently about your sexual health with your partners. If you use the links on our website, again, you save $10 and it helps support the show. So we thank you in advance for that. And next week, we have another amazing interview
with Michaela and Paul.
Not to be confused with the Michaela from last week.
A different Michaela.
Different Michaela and different Paul, even though last week wasn't a Paul.
Right.
So we're excited for that. We hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. We will see you Friday at the meet and greet, the virtual meet and greet.
Virtual meet and greet, December 17th.
And then we will see you again next week for our regularly scheduled programming.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for listening.